Today we're doing a darkroom tour. I'm going to show you everything it took to set this space up, and I'm going to walk you through why I chose the things that I chose and how all of it has been working so far, the things that I would improve, and the things that I love. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about my sink. This is a 22 by 25 inch sink. The basin on the inside is roughly 18 by 22, and the reason that I went with such a small sink is because the width of this room is actually only about 3.5 feet. It's a very narrow space. So I wanted enough space with the sink in place to be able to have space behind it to walk back and forth in whatever it is that I'm doing. So I went with something that was not as wide this way, but it was a little bit longer this way. And I also wanted something that was going to be deep enough to fit a water basin in, because I knew I was going to be using this to develop color film. I also was anticipating that it was something I would potentially use in the future to develop my own photos. And I wanted something that would be deep enough so that I could do that without having to worry about chemicals splashing around. So I went with a slightly deeper sink. It's about 12 inches deep. And I went with a stainless steel sink because I wanted something that was going to be durable, one, but I also wanted something that was going to make this space feel like something I was excited to come down and work in. And believe it or not, my sink is where I spend most of the time down here. So I wanted something that was going to tick all of the boxes for me. A quick side note, everything that we talk about today will have affiliate links for in the description down below. So if you are interested in building your own darkroom, you have access to that down there. The next thing I want to talk about is this shelf that you see right here. This shelf houses all of my chemicals. So I have my color developer and Blix here, and then on the left I have all of my black and white developing chemicals, and my Sous Vide has a magnetic bottom, so it sticks to this metal shelf and doesn't move anywhere, and I don't have to worry about anything happening to it. I have my water basin upside down underneath the sink, as well as a little bit of hand soap, because you're gonna need to refill that quite regularly when you're working in a dark room. I store my funnel and my hypo check here, which is to check my fixer whenever I'm developing black and white film to make sure that it's not exhausted. And then my black and white developer lives right here. On this side here, I have my Husky Toolbox that I got from Home Depot, but you can get them on Amazon. They're wonderful. Just some standard hand towels for keeping things dry. Like I've said in previous videos, I do always wash all of the developing equipment right after I'm done using it, because I want to make sure that it lasts a long time. I have a few photos here for inspiration, because this particular photographer, Dominique Powers, is somebody that I really respect. She does beautiful work. These are pictures from 2023 Tour de France. And that is a big goal of mine for the future, to shoot that race. This gives me inspiration when I'm down here developing my photos. On the back wall behind me, these are shelves that I put in that stood in the place of the table that you saw at the entryway. I wanted something that was gonna hold my chemicals, but it was just too far away from the sink, and it's much more streamlined to have the table next to the sink when I'm developing than to go back and forth. So this is kind of just old developing stuff. Any extra chemicals that I have for refilling the storage jugs that I have go on these shelves, and then I also have my measuring cups that sit in the corner. I do also have a stool that lives in the corner that I got because when I am using my changing bag for 15 plus rolls of film, it's really nice to have something to sit down, and this is the perfect size to be able to do that, and it fits in that corner really, really well. This lives on the side of my Husky here. Now I'm gonna walk you through my Husky. This is something that I use for storage. All of my developing reels live in here after they have been washed and dried. I have a pair of safety goggles when I'm not using my glasses, and then a mask because, like I have mentioned in previous videos, the chemicals are not great to breathe in, and you should be wearing a mask when you are developing. I also have scissors and my 35mm canister stored in here, as well as some tape in case I need it, my processing cheat sheet, some film strips for testing my developer. That lives in here as well. This drawer holds my developer, and then in the next drawer, I have extra hand towels, gloves, latex and rubber gloves, and then below that is all of my film. I have all of my 120 living in this section here, my 35mm on the far left. These containers that you see here and here and here are for when I'm traveling. I found out about these because a friend of mine told me that TSA tends to be a little nicer when you have your film hand checked if it's in something clear. And these are on Amazon. They're fantastic. I want to have more, but I really only need to have 2. I want to get a clear one for my 120, but I am a little bit afraid because I don't want them to open up the plastic inside. And I like to keep my 120 in boxes as much as possible unless it's in one of these kinds of cardboard boxes. I don't like taking the 120 out. So that's part of the reason I haven't gotten one of these yet for the 120. But this has been amazing. TSA will take the rolls out individually and they will swipe them with whatever those little wipes are that they use to check for things that you're not supposed to have. And then they put everything back and they put the rubber band on, and it's super, super simple. So these I highly, highly, highly recommend. They're fantastic for going through TSA and needing to have your film hand checked. This is the container that I use when I'm taking my 120. And then this little black container is the same brand as this clear container, but this is what I use usually to store rolls that I've shot to help keep the light out because I'm super paranoid about that. This one is also on Amazon. It's plastic. It's really awesome. You can get these rubber bands for them to help keep it secure and keep it from coming apart. I've also got my little topo bag that I will use in the event that I don't have this or I need to be able to hold more film. That comes with me on almost every trip. And then we don't have anything else in the drawers. Another thing to note about my darkroom is that I wanted to go with wood tops for everything. It's the reason that I picked this Husky Toolbox, because I wanted to be able to use the top for product photography. So you'll see that this one here, as well as this one here, have the same color tops. And I did that intentionally so that if I needed more space, I could use either of those tops for product photography. This space down here is about 9 by 3.5 feet. It's a smaller space than what I would hope for. That is something that in the future, if I had more space or if this darkroom moved, I would hope that I could have something that's maybe a little bit wider. I don't necessarily need anything longer because this is pretty much all of the space that I need as far as length goes, but it would be nice to have something that is a bit wider. It would also be nice to have a sink that is a little bit longer, just so that I can have more room when I'm working with my chemicals. It does get a little crowded in there when you have the basin and you're doing color developing, but it's something that's super functional, and I've really enjoyed having all of the things in here to help me with the creative process of developing my film. The other thing I would change is I would like the ability to turn this space completely dark. I can't do that right now because it is in part of our storage of our house, and there isn't a door on the other side of the camera. So it is open, and that's part of the reason why I have to have the changing bag that I have when I'm developing my film. It's a nice process to just sit and have your hands free and not have them in a bag, but that's not something that I can do in this space. So in the future, if it's something that is possible, that would be an upgrade I would make to my darkroom space. For this space specifically, I do also need to put in a type of exhaust or ventilation system. There's a bathroom on the other side of this wall. In the future, I would like to have an exhaust vent or some type of ventilation that is attached to that exhaust system to help pull some of the chemicals out of this room. And the last thing is having a timer. I've been using my phone to do that and it's gotten me by, but it would be nice to have something separate from my phone that just lives on the wall. I do love how quiet it is down here. I'm in the basement, so it's something that is pretty isolated from sound, and it helps you really get in the zone when you're developing your film. There are things that I would like to upgrade about this space. like the ventilation system and putting a door or some type of block out in this room, but for the most part they are want to haves, not need to haves, minus the ventilation system. If you're looking to start developing your film at home, the biggest thing I would say you need is a sink. And it can be a bathroom sink. It doesn't have to be a big, deep sink like this. I was developing in the bathroom on the other side of this wall before I set this space up, and it worked great. There were limitations with the depth of the sink and having to fill the water up, and if I wanted to use this super tall developing tank, I had to go upstairs to run water through it at the end of the developing, and that was a big reason why I decided I needed a bigger sink. But if you do have the space to start your own darkroom, I would recommend a good solid stainless steel sink, a Husky Toolbox, and it doesn't have to be this long. I'm not using all of the drawers in this, but I wanted something that was going to fill up this space and give me working space, and the top of this allows me to do that. Part of the reason I got the wood top was for product photography, but also so that I could have a good working space. In the event that you don't have a space that you can turn completely dark and you need a changing bag, having a space that you can put the changing bag on top of is crucial. I was trying to do this before I had this space set up and it was a nightmare. And the table at the entrance is also another really good working space. If this is filled up, I have another space to work on top of, and if I need it, again, for product photography, they both match in color, so it's gonna have consistency. You're gonna want some gloves and hand towels to help keep things dry, to wipe off your hands, to hold the Blix into your developing tank when it's trying to explode on you. Really, that's it. You'll need chemicals, and this is the perfect space to mix those chemicals. You have a sink that is wide enough to do that, that is deep enough to do that. You have working space up here in order to keep everything organized, and it's a great little space for a drying rack when you're done cleaning all of your developing tools at the end of the developing process. Probably my favorite part of the darkroom is this Husky pad on the floor. These floors are concrete, and when you stand down here for hours at a time, it's really nice to have the relief on your back with one of these Husky mats. Not a sponsor. And then you're gonna need the basics for developing your film. You'll need your developing tanks, your chemicals, your reels, and storage for your chemicals. All of the chemicals I store in these storage containers that I got off of Amazon or B&H. They are fantastic, they hold the right amount, and it's super easy for me to use the chemicals when I'm pouring them into my developing tank, and it's also super easy to pour the chemicals back into the storage container. So those are really the basics that you're going to need. I use steel developing tanks. A big reason why I use steel is because it lasts longer. Putting film on steel reels is a process that I enjoy doing. A pretty important factor about developing film at home, if you decide to set up your own space, is that the developing system that you use, if it is steel, every part of that system has to be steel, and if it is plastic, like the Patterson developing system, everything has to be plastic. Either system will develop your film the way it's supposed to be developed, as long as you're following the guidelines on temperature and time. Do note that if you start developing at home, I have videos on developing color film as well as developing black and white film. The processes are slightly different, so if you need help with that, I do have videos that you can watch to help you get through that process. That's it for my little darkroom tour. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions about any of the stuff down here or questions about developing, you can leave them down below. I'll make sure I do link all of the stuff in here down below as well, so you have access to it. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Tilly Scholl, and I'll catch you on the next one.